There are many different kinds of video game, with more genres and subgenres being classified each year. From shoot-'em-ups to puzzle games, there's something for every gamer, and gamers tend to stick to their favorite genres once they've established their tastes. I certainly have my personal tastes. I like a lot of different genres, but there's some that I just don't touch, like beat-'em-ups. One genre of game I'm relatively inexperienced in are casual games. Games that exist to help you relax, games that exist to soothe the pain of the outside world. I usually don't dabble in these. However, change is a way of life, and every now and then, a game will come along that will change my mind on a particular genre. For the casual niche specifically, this game was Smushi Come Home. And this game is really special to me. I mean, sure, it's a fantastic little game full of charm with fantastic gameplay and great visuals, but that doesn't necessarily make something become near and dear to me. So why is it so special to me? Because Smushi Come Home was the first game I ever playtested, and whether you've played it or not, I'm here today to share my experience with it and relay to you why you should play it, and if you've already played it, play it again. Now! All introduction aside, let me explain why Smushi Come Home is such a fantastic game, and maybe, if you stick around for just a little while, there might be a nice surprise later in this video. The first thing that stuck out to me when I played Smushi was its visuals. The game is gorgeous, and it is without a doubt more beautiful than anything Game Freak has put out in the last decade. I have made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment. I do not expect to be forgiven. The game's art style is perfect for the chill tone it successfully gives off, and for fans of older exploration style games, there's even a setting that lets you adjust the pixelation of the game. This is such an awesome touch and shows how much the developer cares about the game's atmosphere. Speaking of which, the game's environments are gorgeous. They're jam-packed with things to do and see, and even in areas where there's nothing progress related to do, there's still little details that make me smile every time I see them. The game's mechanics work perfectly with the environments. The climbing hooks are extremely fun to use, and you might be surprised with how much you can do with them. The glider is also awesome to use, and collecting the essence to power it up also gives you reason to explore each area's nooks and crannies. The skins you unlock for Smushi are cool collectibles that serve this purpose as well, and I appreciate that they aren't just simple palette swaps. Smushi as a character is adorable, and that can be said for every other model in this game as well. They are all done flawlessly and look great regardless of the pixelation settings, and that's a sign of a good model. The puzzles are really fun to solve as well, although the honey puzzle definitely made me come close to smashing my controller a few times. Hopefully that doesn't have any adverse effects on me. I think I'll be fine. The mycology journal is a cool touch that adds to the immersion, and I appreciate the little comment on the bottom of each page. The story is lighthearted yet touching, and I definitely chuckled at the writing a few times. In the spirit of Smushi Come Home being short but sweet, I think I'll end the review portion of this video here. I could probably go on for hours about the beta testing experience, the cut content that the developer probably doesn't want me to leak, or how much I love this specific wall, but much like Smushi, I don't want to overstay my welcome. This game is short, sweet, and worth every penny that you pay for it, and I'd rather you go play it yourself than get everything spoiled for you. With that being said, I had the absolute honor of being able to interview this game's developer, SomeHumbleOnion. This interview came out perfectly, and I think it gives some good insight into this game's development and backstory, while also having some good tips for aspiring game designers. I'm gonna stop yammering on now. Thank you to SomeHumbleOnion for agreeing to do this, and without further ado, please enjoy. So again, thank you for agreeing to do this, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. So let me preface for the people who are watching by saying I really enjoyed the game. I think you did a fantastic job with it. I think it'll win a bunch of indie awards this year. That's what I'm predicting. Yeah, but it's really cool because I've been testing it since the beginning, and that's even if that's such a small piece of the puzzle. It's really cool to see the whole thing come to fruition.
Yeah, no, thank you again, man. You've really been a huge help being there since the beginning, being in the first round of playtests when the level design and everything was so rough. It would have not gotten to where it is now without like your help and just so much test playing, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. So just I guess we start here. So the game has like a clear influence from older games, whether they be N64s or just the collectathon genre in general. What was your biggest inspiration for like the style you took for Smushi Gum Home?
That's a good question. I think as far as the style goes, a short hike. That's one of the clear inspirations. A lot of people catch on with that, and they'll say like, "Oh, this reminds me so much of a short hike." Luckily, all in good ways, you know. That was a game that really introduced me into just like the shorter, more wholesome gaming experiences. It really, really got me into just that whole kind of genre because I was just not able to beat games anymore for years in college and stuff. I just never was able to beat 10, 20-hour games, and then here came this little cute adventure game that you could beat in like 2 hours, but you could play around in it for 10 if you wanted to. It was just so much fun, and I loved that art style with like the flat shaded, pixelated aesthetic, kind of like running on an old DS or maybe even like PS1 inspired graphics a little bit. I really love that style. So that was a really big inspiration, but I also looked at a lot of just other simplistic art style indie games, kind of like a Frog Detective even, Wide Ocean Big Jacket, that's a really good one. Just like all these kind of cell shaded, flat styled games, but I guess I tried to take it to the next level. With a short hike, it was flat shaded, and it had that it worked really well with that pixelated aesthetic because all the textures were very simple.
Right.
And with Smushi Come Home, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take that inspiration, but try to give it some of that Pikmin feel, because I really, really love the Pikmin series. My favorite games of all time. I'm a huge Pikmin nerd,
Right.
and I wanted to have the game in that Pikmin environment. You know, post-apocalyptic Earth. The humans are gone, but it doesn't feel evil. It feels more like nature has just kind of taken over, and so you're in that like tiny world aesthetic. So I wanted it to still kind of have that vibe, and in order to do that, I had to really work on the texturing. So it has that simplistic, cartoony style of a short hike, but it still also has a little bit more detail in certain things, like the
Yeah.
plants actually have hand-drawn textures instead of it just being like a flat shape.
Right.
Stuff like that, basically.
Yeah, I think the pixelation setting is one of the most unique things that like I've ever seen. I have never seen something like that before in a video game.
Same.
And considering that that's been there since like build 1 and it was clearly like part of the design motif, I think it's like a really cool thing that you built the game around being like it can be this modern like game with just like a little chibi art style, or you can crank the graphics down and make it look like an older game for the nostalgia factor of that. I think that's a really cool touch.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. And I'll be honest, I think a short hike rocked the pixelated look a lot more because the more detail you have in the game, the messier the pixelation gets. So with the short hike's more simplistic style, it really worked well. It didn't get too noisy. So after a while, you know, if you ever look back at like my old Twitter posts, my old TikToks, you'll see I gradually stopped using that pixelation filter overall, but I still built the game around that style. So I made sure that no textures had any blurriness, everything was pixel art. All of the shadows were crisp. There was absolutely just like no sort of blur to anything because I didn't want the pixels to be blurry. I wanted them to be sharp if you decided to use that feature. So it's still optional. Yeah, you know, it's still there. I think most people don't play with it on. Most people enjoy the game without that aesthetic. But I'm definitely still someone who loves that vibe. It's just so cool. And I think a short hike really like it wasn't the first game to do it. There were tons of PS1 inspired horror games and stuff like that that had been using that pixelated aesthetic. Same thing with the sock pop games. They had a couple like that, but
Right.
a short hike was definitely the one that was like, whoa, look at this. This is cool. This dude's like recreating an old DS inspired graphic style, and it's so unique and interesting. And I think a lot of people saw that game, and then there's just tons of games kind of doing it now from what I've seen. Maybe not tons, but more people are trying it because it's a very easy thing to pull off in like Unity or even Unreal. It's not very difficult to make that feature.
Yeah, I have seen that a lot, and the biggest comparison I've seen to your game is a short hike, so you definitely nailed like the aesthetic that game went for, but pulled it off in your own way, and I think that's something really admirable for this is your first published game, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so that's like the fact that you nailed it right out the gate and like have such a good understanding of what the genre is really impressive for a first-time game developer. Yeah. No.
I really appreciate that. I definitely did not want to copy anything. I had been seeing some games just try to copy the style too much. I won't say which games they are because I don't want to throw any shade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably not. It's much less known games. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It's probably not ones you might be thinking. But yeah, I just really didn't want to rip off a short hike. I wanted the game to still be my own kind of thing. I think it's very different from that game.
Yeah.
And so I still wanted to do the same thing with the art style. I was so inspired by the art style of it, but I still wanted to try and put my own twist on there. So I'm really glad to hear that like you felt that, and it seems like a lot of other people are feeling that too. That makes me feel really good, like okay, cool. The art style has worked out here, and even the developer of A Short Hike, Adam Robinson, he's played the demo
really?
Yeah, he's played the demo of Smushi. He really enjoyed it. He said he would play the full release too, which is really awesome. So I think I'm really glad to hear that like he doesn't think I just totally ripped off his game or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a difference between taking some notes from it or making an homage and completely ripping off. Like when someone rips off a game, you can tell. So you definitely did a good job just taking like some little bits and pieces. If the developer of the game that you're like taking a little couple notes from says that you did a really good job, then that's when you know that you like nailed it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I've been here I haven't been here since the beginning of development, obviously, but I was here since the first playtesting build, which I don't know, I don't actually know when this game's development started, but I think you sent out the first, note on Reddit asking for playtesters in March of last year.
I think that's when it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was February or March. So I've seen some broken stuff because of that's what a playtester is for. You got to make sure that the game works. You have to make sure all the pieces fit together and that nothing is broken, which I think the public appreciates it more when a game is released with as little bugs as possible than something like what is it, Redfall that released where it was completely broken.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I forget, but this leads into the question, what was the most challenging part of this game's development for you?
That's I've thought about this before, honestly, and this was one of the things that playtest helped me with the most. But even with all that help, I must say the level design was probably the most challenging feature. It really made me realize, oh my god, no wonder being a level designer is a completely separate job, a completely separate subject. It's very, very difficult. And a couple months ago, I went back and played that very, very first playtest version of the game that I sent out to you and to all the first playtesters. And yeah, I was just playing through the level design, and it was so confusing. You can't tell where anything is. Everything looks the same. There's no map. There's no indicators. There's no monuments. And it was just, it took so many iterations. I completely scrapped that level probably 2 or 3 times. I completely re-scrapped level 2 probably 2 or 3 times. Same thing with the 3rd level, the cave level, every single level went through multiple iterations, and it took quite a lot of time to build each level and then to completely scrap it and start over again. I definitely lost a lot of time doing that, but I really lacked the experience. So it was the only way to learn, to build a level design, pass it off to the testers, have them tell me that it's just not very good, which I really appreciated that honest feedback. People like the developer of Paradise Marsh, Etienne, he was also one of the first playtesters in the same round as you, and I remember you also giving me some really good feedback, and he would just straight up tell me, this level design is super confusing. You either need to give a map or just really work on it because I don't know where I am, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of feedback that you really need to hear. I really did not like it when playtesters would come back to me, especially in the beginning, and just tell me that everything is fantastic and amazing, because I knew that wasn't true. And obviously, it's okay. I understand maybe some people just can't give the best feedback, and that's totally fine. But it definitely doesn't help as much for a developer, especially when I was just so critical about my work. I knew there were so many things wrong with it, and that was why I handed it off. But the level design, man, level design is very tough, especially when you're building an open worldish game. Like Smushi Come Home is not completely open world, but you are kind of given just like free reign of the entire level once you get into it, with a few blockades here and there that are pretty easy to get past once you progress a little bit. So you have to make that very cohesive. You have to balance it. You have to figure out, okay, how many crystals, which are the currency in the game, how many crystals are there going to be in this area, given the required amount of content that needs crystals, and where are you going to put them? Are they going to be high up? Are they going to be low? Well, all of a sudden now the player has unlocked a double hook. So now I've got to make sure that you can't go out of the level too easily, but I also need to require challenges that use that new movement, use that higher ability. And it also has to work kind of with previous levels if you go back. Very challenging. Definitely more challenging than the sound design, the writing, the art style. The art style would probably be second, since that went through many iterations, but level design, man.
Yeah.
I feel like I went off a little long there. I'm sorry if I went off on a
No,
tangent.
you're all right.
Yeah.
I remember when the game, I remember when you were asking for feedback about the level design, and as a playtester, you kind of have to put, being nice, not put being nice to the side, but, you can't, people please, because if you want to see the game come out as good as possible, you don't have to be harsh, but you have to be honest, and, that's how stuff like the little street signs got added, the map system that wasn't in, the first couple builds.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
yeah, the more honest you are, the more that the person in charge knows how to fix stuff, and it's easier to do than, it's easier to give feedback than it seems like. So I'm glad that the feedback we gave was helpful to you, but I can understand why you thought that the level design was a big pain, because, in an open world-ish game, everything needs to be fun to explore. There can't be, areas that have, zero purpose.
Yep.
Even if they just look nice, that's a purpose. But, in this game, there's no, flat areas. There's no areas where there's, no little trinkets. Maybe there's a lighter stuck in the ground somewhere, and that's a landmark. So I think you did a really good job filling in the space that you were given for these levels.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. It was definitely tricky, and like I said, it went through many different iterations, and certain areas got completely redone, like Bowlet Beach in the first level, the spring level. That was a completely different area for the longest time, and it just made zero sense. Throughout feedback and just getting that play tested, I ended up realizing, okay, maybe I can put a new flower shrine here, and I'll make it a beach area instead, and it'll look totally different from the other areas, which will really help with distincting different areas in that level.
Right.
So definitely, yeah, level design was definitely just a really tricky thing that requires tons of feedback, and yeah, like you said, it really has to be cohesive. You can't really have anywhere that's just empty, unless you've got a world that's the size of Breath of the Wild. Then yeah, obviously you can't fill every single crack with stuff, but you don't need to, since you're traveling far across lands. Whereas in Smushi Come Home, you're not really traveling. The maps aren't really that big.
Yeah.
So everything kind of has to have something there, whether it's a new mushroom to discover, some crystals, an NPC, a mini game. There's got to be a little bit of something everywhere.
Yeah, and I there's not one area in the game where it's too empty for too long. So the dispersion of things to do was definitely, you nailed it.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So obviously this is your first publishing game design experience. This is the first one you've actually put out, but this game it didn't take you forever, but it must have felt like it was arduous at times. It must have felt like I am making no progress, and then all of a sudden you'd make this big leap in progress, and that's like the game design dance that you have to do when you're making a game?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
The game itself took basically 2 years. It was like 2 years and 3 weeks, something like that. I started developing it I started working on it in May of 2021, and I started taking it really seriously and working full hours, like a full work week, in July of 2021.
Right.
And there were definitely plenty of times where you'd see progress really shoot up really quickly, and oh, like I've got a dialogue system in the game now, that's huge, and also the player can climb now, and they can glide, and then you go on a downward spiral, and you're just like, oh my god, there's no progress happening. I've got all these systems now, but now I need to make them work. New content isn't really being made because I'm struggling with this. The shaders are tough, the programming stuff, and that all comes with lack of experience on my end. But even the most experienced devs, it's always going to be an up and down cycle. And there were plenty of times where I'd get very drowned in my work, very self-critical, and just very depressed, to be quite honest. I definitely wanted to give up a handful of times. I definitely owe it to my girlfriend for really believing in me in the days that I stopped believing in myself.
Yeah.
But it's tough, man. Yeah, it's really tough. Making a game is very challenging. There's a reason why most devs don't ever get to publish their first games, because a lot of people end up giving up on those titles, and I don't blame them. Like I said, it's really not easy, and it's really difficult making money in the games industry as well, given how competitive it is.
Yeah.
So that was definitely something lingering over my head. As much as I hate having to think about how am I going to make money off this product, I really just wanted to create it.
Yeah.
But obviously that was a real world issue still, and yeah, there's always that thought of, man, I quit my job. I'm 26 now. I have no money, and I'm making this game now. I don't know if it's going to make me even $1. There's no guarantee at all. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a scary thought that I think a lot of indie devs have, and I was for sure having those fears. But the passion and discipline definitely trumped that horror.
Yeah.
And just kept pushing on.
And the advantage here is that now that you're you're not free of Smushi, because you have bugs to squash and you have potential content updates to do if you feel so inclined. But the advantage is that the common problems that beginner game devs encounter, you know how to tackle those, and you have strategies to get around problems.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're good. So I was going to ask, do you have any just basic tips for beginner game designers for when they're feeling discouraged, or for when they have, little bugs that they think they'll never overcome, or when they think about their product and just get a negative view of it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say, for one, just having some sort of, if you don't have it in you to truly just constantly think you're going to be a success, that was a mindset that I tried to adapt from Eric Baroni. He's the creator of Stardew Valley, and in one of his talks he basically says, he spent 4 years making that game, and he just was not really, it felt like he wasn't getting anywhere with it for a long time. He wasn't making any money for 4 years, completely dedicated to this project. And he basically talks about how he had to convince himself that the game was going to work out. And it's a very scary philosophy. It's a dangerous thing to convince yourself in that manner, because there is still no guarantee. But that was the mindset that I adopted, and here I am. It's worked out for me. I don't know if it's going to work out for everyone, but it definitely helps prevent that self-doubt. Self-doubt is such a scary thing for an artist, and if you're a game developer, you are an artist. And you have to be careful of that. You have to be critical on yourself to make the best version of the game that you can. But you can't bully yourself. You can't let that self-doubt creep in. So I would say have a very strong mindset. Really, truly believe in yourself, as cheesy as it sounds. But also having a community. Posting your game online, building up a small community. For me, I had my Discord that was very dedicated. Having those people there constantly supporting, and just seeing that, I have people here that are actually waiting for my game every day. They're excited. That also really keeps you going. That you don't necessarily want to rely on motivation, because motivation will always come and go, and that will make your work balance really up and down. Don't rely on motivation. But it's still good to have just that little, booster from a fan base, whether it's on Discord or Twitter or TikTok, and just seeing that there are people there enjoying your posts every time you make it, whether it's 1,000 likes or 10, just knowing that people are out there checking out your game.
Right.
That's really good. Really, really appreciate that, no matter how big or small it is.
For sure, yeah.
And yeah, definitely just make small games. You know, that's what I would tell game designers and people starting out. Do not jump into your dream game. I know they've probably heard this before, because every game developer tells them that, and it is 100% true. Do not jump into your huge dream game immediately. I personally made tons of small little games before I jumped into Smushi, as I was learning the Unity game engine, and you've got to do that. It's so crucial.
Right, yeah. It's always good to have a strong foundation of people rooting you on, but when sometimes those people just aren't there, and obviously, they're there on your Discord, they're there on your phone, but sometimes you just gotta be cautious about it, but believe in yourself, too. So just take those baby steps, but remember that everyone has what it takes to do something that they really put their mind to. So I think that's really good advice that you give. Yeah,
no, well said. That's exactly it.
Yeah, so just be cautiously optimistic for anyone watching who wants to make a game. I know I'm chugging along with my game design pursuits, and I'm definitely being really slow about it, because if I'm not, I waste a lot of time, and time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously Smushi, is a very, he's a perfectly designed protagonist because he has what it takes to be, perfectly iconic. He's chibi, but not, too cutesy that he won't apply to everyone. And he's, he has a funny personality, the game's dialogue is very funny, I laughed out loud several times. He's just, the quintessential gaming protagonist from a small indie game.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that.
So my question is, if you had the opportunity, and there's companies out there that do this, there's a bevy of, I think A Short Hike is going to get one soon. If you had the opportunity to do, a physical release of your game, or maybe even Smushi collectibles, would you take that opportunity?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's already been, ever since the game has come out last week, that's one of the most requested questions I get. It's either, are you making a Smushi 2, are you making Smushi DLC, or are you making physicals? People really are getting excited about potential physicals of the game, which is just so cool to see, because I'm sure you're probably the same way, being someone who, has been playing games for a while and grew up on older systems. Having those physical copies is just so cool, man. I love having physical editions of my old GameCube favorites. I've got the physical collector's edition of A Short Hike. I would love to do that, and I've actually already been talking with Super Rare Games.
Wow.
They're an indie game publisher, and they also do physicals. And they were a potential publisher for Smushi, actually, at one point. And I was in London. I have family over there. Before I signed with the publisher, and I actually went and had lunch with them, since they're based out in London, which was really cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're an awesome team. They gave me the copy of A Short Hike physical, which was really nice of them. And at that time I chose to not sign with them, but they were still very cool. They still wanted to hang out, and we were talking about, hey, even though I didn't sign with you guys, we can still do potential physical release and work together. And so that's definitely something we're looking at. And I've already talked to them since the game's release, and they're also thinking about it as well. Definitely, yeah, possibility, man. Doing some physical collector's editions. If I could do some Smushi merch, I would totally be down to do that. It seems like something that fans are really wanting to see, and I'd be happy to see that as well. It'd be honestly a dream come true to see my game on a physical copy. I mean,
yeah,
that'd be crazy.
And the advantage of it is it's not an overwhelmingly large file size, so it's prime for a Switch release, because they don't have to pay overly for bigger cartridges.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Yeah, but I'm really glad to hear that you're making stuff work with the potential future of Smushi. I'm glad to hear that the Super Rare team is really nice. I've purchased a few things from them, and they seem like a very honorable company, so I'm really glad to hear that everything's working out with that.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely. They're a very cool team. They are incredibly passionate about indie games. You know, like they really do love what they do. Even like the founder George Perkins, I believe is his last name. You know, even his dad is a gamer and he works at the company for him. He's a super cool dude. He's got a Pikmin tattoo on his arm, which was it almost got me signing with them since I'm such a huge Pikmin fan and they knew that. So just a super cool team, man. Really awesome team. I love that they are out there helping out indies, getting physical releases. They're not the only company that does that, but to me, they seem to be one of the most well-known and most passionate.
yeah, and like Smushi himself is like prime for plushie territory, so you have that advantage.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, I think this will be the last question. Or no, maybe second to last, because this one will take really short amount of time. How did it feel to get a release on the Nintendo Switch, and at that, a trailer on their official YouTube channel? Because I know you were, like, in the Discord a while ago when we were testing some of the first builds, you were like, I'm thinking about it, you know, it's, like, kind of tougher to publish on the Switch, there's, like, tougher criteria for that. So how did that feel that finally came to fruition?
Honestly, I am, you know, it's been a week and a day now since the release, and I'm still processing it. It's insane, man. It's really crazy. Today is actually going to be the day where I finally play my game on the Switch. I was going to show it off to my dad, and I was going to do it on the Switch. So I've personally never even really played my game on the Switch. I played the demo a little bit when I was at PAX East with my publishers, and we were demoing it on the Switch, but yeah, I don't even think I don't know. I guess I just haven't been able to fully experience it yet. Seeing my trailer up there on the Nintendo, you know, YouTube page is just absolutely insane, and all the comments on there are incredibly nice. And just having my game on that Nintendo console, man, it's crazy. It's just absolutely insane, and I would have not been able to do it without my publishers.
Yeah.
Porting a game to Nintendo Switch is tough. That is not a strong system.
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch is not powerful at all. My God. And luckily, I didn't have to do most of it, but I still helped out a good bit with optimizing. And then obviously making sure the game runs on the Switch is quite tricky. They're very strict about, you know, controller support. It's got to work on the Pro Switch controller, the individual Joy-Cons. If you take those out, it's got to work on handheld, all that stuff.
Right.
It was really difficult, but incredibly rewarding. Super amazing. It's definitely like a target audience as well, with the, you know, Smushi being so cute and you know, casual game, and that's really big on Switch. Surprisingly, it seems to be also really I don't know, just like also really balancing out on Steam. To our surprise, we were expecting to see the Switch really be like the main, but it's actually quite even right now.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I thought like the Switch is such a perfect platform for the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's honestly really cool to see like Steam players be just as interested in it as Switch players, which is pretty cool. But yeah, man, seeing that game on the Switch, seeing it up there on that YouTube page, I'm still processing it, but
Yeah.
it's incredible.
I saw the when it launched on launch day. I saw the trailer in my like YouTube feed, and I'm like, oh, look, the dev, he published the trailer, and then I looked at the account, and I'm like, there is no way. I was floored. So I was ecstatic to see that. I think I was like I was at my barber at the time. I was like waiting to get my haircut, and I'm like, oh, look at that. He posted the launch trailer. I know he said that the game was out, and then I'm like, wait a minute. So
I'm glad.
Yeah,
That was a nice little surprise.
I was really, really happy to see that. I'm really happy that it worked out like so well with the Switch and the target audience. And I know it's hard work to port to the Switch. I know that, but
yeah,
I think it's 100% worth it just based on the fact of like the Switch's target demographic.
Absolutely, yeah, and that is also the most. I believe it's the most sold console. I think it's past the Wii. And maybe it's below the DS or something if you're counting handhelds, but
right.
That is the most sold console of all consoles, which is just crazy. So it's definitely a platform that you want to port to if you can get the help. And yeah, I'm super happy, man, that it's at least running like a solid. It doesn't ever dip below 30. It goes up to 60 in some areas. FPS is what I'm sorry I didn't specify, but yeah, it's actually running quite smooth on there, which was something I was really scared about because I was never able to test it. I never got a dev kit in time, and my publishers were telling me it was good, but I was always like a little anxious, like, is it really good? Are you sure? I really want to see it, and it's out now, and everyone's telling me it's running flawless. So I'm like, okay, thank God.
Yeah, it definitely ran really, really well, and whatever bugs that people find, you squash them really fast. Like, there was a patch, like, almost every day for about a week.
Yeah, we were pumping out those patches on Steam like crazy, and everyone's been so forgiving too. Given that the main audience of this game are like cozy gamers, casual gamers, people who enjoy wholesome games, and even people who enjoy like combat-focused games are still playing it, and they're very, very forgiving with these bugs. It's so amazing. I've had bugs where people get stuck completely in the beginning when the game first came out, and it'd be like a game-breaking bug, and I couldn't do anything for Switch players because I can't edit your save file. And people would just be like, "Oh yeah, no worries. I wanted to replay the game anyways." And I'd be like, "Well, well, all right. You're not gonna give me a negative review. You're not gonna tell me you want a refund. None of that. Okay, wow."
Yeah.
Everyone's just been so kind about bugs, and they've been very supportive, very helpful. So that's a really cool thing to see. I think that also just helps with your game being on Nintendo. The Nintendo audience, for the most part, I mean,
yeah,
they seem really chill.
They're chill usually when it comes to like smaller developers because they're intelligent enough to recognize that you don't have like all the resources in the world. But man, if a bigger company screws up, they will rip you apart. They will tear you limb from limb. So you have the advantage of like it's a shorter game as well. So if in the rare case that there is a game-breaking bug, like they'll just be like, oh yeah, I'll just replay it. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
The exploration factor of the area, I already explored it, so I'll just go through the area, grab what I need, and just go. So it's a really... Plus, like, the convenience of being able to take the Switch out of the dock and play it anywhere you want, like, just as a calming factor if you're having a busy day, it's really awesome. So I'm glad that the audience has been nice.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. You definitely see exactly how it is. That's the beauty of the Switch, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so final question, just so I think this is the big one that I'm interested in. So you've put this game out, you're thinking, as you said, you're thinking about DLC, maybe a sequel, ? Although that's up to your discretion. You're currently squashing bugs and stuff and dealing with, like, the hectic state that is releasing a game and being, like, 1 week into its release cycle. But I just wanted to ask, is there anything that we should know about what's up next for you? Like, any teases for a new project? Are you gonna stay in the cozy genre? Are you gonna try your hand at another genre now that you know you have the chops for, like, developing and releasing games, now that you have a nice publisher who would probably be willing to partner with you again, given the success of Smushi?
That's a really good question. Yeah, that's a really good question, honestly. It's tricky to say, because right now I am just kind of riding this Smushi wave. People are still very excited about the game. Hopefully that stays. And I'd like to do at least one free content update with just like a completely new level with just like an hour's worth of content, just to kind of round it off. That's kind of where I'm leaning more towards right now. But I'm telling you, I am fighting the urge to start working on a new game almost every day. I'm so excited to jump back into a new project now that I've gained so much experience over these 2 years and I haven't worked on any other game. So now, like you said, I really do want to dive into another game. But yeah, it's tough. I don't want to ignore Smushi just yet.
Yeah.
If I were to kind of tease the audience, I would say I'm probably not going to start working on another game, at least for a couple months. For one, I need a break. Because it's been 2 years of
deserve
nonstop.
one, God. All the resetting and scrapping stuff, resetting levels, listening to feedback, squashing bugs even is like a mess because you're like, is the audience going to be forgiving this time? But
yeah, not to mention the marketing. My God, I'm not ready to start marketing a game again. Oh man, that was a lot of work.
It is, yeah, but the advantage this time is you do have like a built-up Discord server.
Yeah.
With people that would probably like flock to another server for a new game if you were to make one. You have like you have a reputation now as someone who like is dedicated to creating games and like doesn't release stuff you don't release stuff in a state that's unplayable, and if there is a bug you fix it, like you fixed it fast. So you have a good reputation within the industry. You have people supporting you. If you need a playtester, you know who to call. But like, I understand you needing to take a break. God, you need one.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. It's definitely something I think I need, but part of me doesn't want to do. Like my girlfriend told me the other day, she's like, "Don't you dare start working on anything new. I want to encourage you to, but at the same time, you need to take a break." And I was I really just want to jump in and start working on a new model for something totally different right now and see where I can go.
Yeah, you got the creative juices flowing. You got the satisfaction of pushing one out. You're still working on that, and you're like,
yeah,
I'm bored.
I've got some. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what do I do right now with my time? This is weird. I'm not working on a game 24/7 anymore, but I kind of feel like I don't know. Do I play other games? I don't know now. Yeah. It's really weird.
I know how it feels when you're working on, like, I've worked on a few game-related projects for school and stuff like that, and when you're done, when you get out of, like, the development hell of, like I push out small projects with groups of people, so it's, like, nothing to your caliber, but even then, I'm, like, when I'm not working on something, I'm like, what is a video game? How do I play it again? Like,
exactly.
You're thrust back into an unfamiliar world because you've been in that development grind set for like 2 years. So
exactly.
Yeah, please take a break. Like, take a break. Keep an eye on things. People love it so far, but like, I think I speak for a lot of people. I don't speak for everyone, obviously, because there's going to be people who just hate everything. But I speak for a lot of people when I say you did a fantastic job with this.
Oh, thank you,
and
man.
Like, yeah, now you have, like, the advantage of you made your connections, and you can, like, after you take your break, you can dive back into whatever you want to do.
Definitely, man. No, I really do appreciate that, and it's definitely something I have been thinking about a lot since the release. I've been able to kind of breathe. You know, the first, like, 5 or 6 days were crazy, but now I'm actually kind of able to take some time back since bug reports aren't crazy. And, you know, personally, I love all kinds of game genres. You know, like, I love really psychological horror games. I love combat games, roguelites. I'm not real big on FPSs, but like there are some that I really enjoy. And then I also love incredibly cozy, narrative, non-combat focused games as well. So I'm a little worried about, you know, I've created this audience, I've created this fan base of just like wholesome, cozy gamers, and I definitely am not done making wholesome, cozy games. Absolutely not. I absolutely love making them. I love playing them. But I do want to jump into other genres. I might make something that's a little bit more weird and maybe a little spooky. You know, I like spooky stuff. Or maybe not spooky, but maybe a little more darker, or some combat even. Maybe try and make a combat game. And I hope that my audience that I have now will still kind of support me, even though they're not necessarily, they won't be my target audience anymore for maybe most of them or some of them.
Yeah, I mean, some may go and some may be drawn away from it, but a lot of more people will get drawn to it. So
yeah, exactly.
It's good that you have the backing. It might not be for everyone, but it'll be at least for a couple of them.
I think so too. Yeah, it'll definitely, making this game and having this audience has definitely helped me in some way with my next game, regardless of its genre.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something I'm going to be exploring. I'm 100% going to be prototyping a handful of different genre styles in the coming months, maybe after a little break, and just see like, ooh, I'm really enjoying like a top-down hack and slash, or I'm really enjoying a full-on, much more hardcore platformer game, or maybe I want to do some pixel art. I don't know. I'm definitely gonna play around. There's a lot of possibilities out there, a lot of ideas that I've got, but
the world is your oyster. And it'll be a lot easier. Like, it won't be a breeze, but it'll be a lot easier to squash your bugs and figure out your framework this time, now that you're experienced. So that's the advantage of it.
Definitely. And I'll likely be using a similar art style. You know, I love doing things stylized.
Yeah.
I like, you know, games that aim to look realistic are still very cool, and some of them do it really well, especially indies. But I'm more of a stylized kind of guy. Like, I enjoy I enjoy the look of Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild over like Call of Duty and stuff like that. Like
Right.
that 2D style. So I'll
Yeah.
definitely be. I think I'll have a much easier time with my next game in regards to the art style, because I was still very new to 3D modeling with Smushi. I had been learning Blender for like 3 months, 4 months, and I was like, all right, time to jump in.
Yeah.
And and it took me a much longer time to even get started with making plants and flowers and how it's gonna look and stuff. So
Yeah.
definitely excited, man. I'm excited to use this experience now that I've gained for 2 years. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and a lot of people will have their eyes out, including me. So, no pressure, but take your break. But
Thank you, man.
I know I know whatever you put out, you'll put your heart into it, and that's all that, like, that putting your heart into a game is a lot more than can be said for a lot of games that get put out nowadays. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people recognize that from what I've read in the reviews. People have told me, hey, this game has a lot more heart than the recent ones I've played, and I really do feel it. And even though it's a short experience, it was a very it was just very worthwhile, and that's something I'm glad I was able to bring to the table. And I hope that it inspires other devs out there to really make games that aren't for the market. They're not for the big audience. I made that mistake with my first game that I ended up dropping,
right.
because I was making a game that I didn't really like, but I knew it had a big audience. And you just can't make a good game like that. You have to have your heart in it. You've really got to have a passion for what you're making. So I hope that Smushi has inspired some devs in that way.
It definitely has inspired me to start taking, like, I'm learning, not Blender, but Maya. I'm learning
Nice.
a lot of, like, Unity. I'm diving into stuff. So, like, the fact that this game came out and you could tell it has so much heart in it is really, like, it's inspiring to see, because if you put your heart into something, you'll be more encouraged to continue than if you're just making something soulless. Because you'll be like, well,
Exactly.
if I'm not thinking about what I'm making, I can just drop this project and start another one and get to the same place in so little time. But
Exactly.
the fact that you put so much heart and soul into this game, and, like, you're still working on it, you're still, like, keeping an eye on it, it'll show people that, like, hey, this game it's not shovelware, it's worth playing.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what I'm trying to prove, because there's tons of shovelware on Switch and
Oh, yeah.
Steam, and it's very easy to release a gem and then just have it get drowned. So I really do owe a lot of that to, well, I owe everything really to the community and the people playing my game, and they don't just play it, but then they share it and they write a review and they
Yeah.
recommend it, and that's something really beautiful to see. And it's nice to see that gamers recognize that. They recognize that a game has heart in it, and that has, like, the developer was clearly passionate about this game, and they honor that, and they really help boost that visibility. So I'm really happy to hear that you're inspired, man, and that you're picking up these new tools. I mean, now is the time to learn game development. It's never been more accessible.
Oh yeah,
And
indie games are getting more and more popular. They're doing, like, the
Yeah.
Dead Cell. I think it's a Dead Cells animated series, which is just so incredible to see from, like,
that's awesome.
a standpoint of indie games. Maybe Smushi can get one day. Who knows? But
That'd be really cool.
the bottom line is you did a fantastic job with this game. It's like so cool, even if I'm not, like, the one who made it, obviously. It's so cool to see this thing that I got involved with in the slightest way a couple of years ago finally drop and be, like, so absolutely, like, fantastically developed.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
thank you.
it's
again,
nice.
and
Yeah.
you were definitely part of it.
Yeah, it's nice to see, like, the human side of game development. It's nice,
Absolutely.
like, there's games get dropped every year, hundreds of them, but it's nice to see, like, it's nice to be reminded that there are real people behind these games who really, and a lot of them really care about what they're doing. So,
Definitely.
it's really nice to see a real person. It's really nice to see that everything turned out well. And,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
the community owes you its thanks just as much as you owe thanks to the community. We owe you the thanks for releasing a product that you really believe in, and a product that's really good and fun. So, thank you for that. Yeah. So, I think that'll be the end of the interview. Thank you again so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm glad that you are starting this in general. I think this is a really cool series. I'm happy to be part of it.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I like the audience size isn't really what about YouTube. The audience size isn't really what I've been going after. I just kind of, I'm like, hey, it would be fun if I put my thoughts to paper, or
Yeah,
put my
totally.
thoughts to video, and then I'm like, you know what would be fun? Let me interview the dev of this game that I play tested. Let's see if he's up for it, because I think it would be a fun idea.
Absolutely. I personally love doing this stuff. I love talking about game development since it's been my life for the past 2 years heavily. 3 years since I kind of got into it, but 2 years with Smushi. So it's something that I like live, breathe, eat, sleep. I really do enjoy talking about it and sharing that insight because it's like you said, there's not a lot of I guess the developers do kind of get hidden behind a wall of their games.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear. I always appreciated hearing other developers talk about their work and give that insight because it does kind of feel like getting into indie games can be tricky and there's secrets to the industry, and so there doesn't need to be that really. It's not like we're some sort of big business, we're artists, so don't keep things secretive,
Right. And I'm not like trying to be. I'm not going to be the biggest YouTuber ever, but if I can give like just one or two indie developers the opportunity to share their thoughts on a game they made, or like maybe in the future if my channel gets big enough, which I'm not like gonna do this as a career or anything, I want to make games, but
Right.
if it gets big enough, maybe I could like be a source for them to come put their trailers, or I want to help people out, so I'm really glad that I was able to let you put your thoughts to paper, and I'm really glad that you agreed to come do this, so I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, thank you, man. This is really cool what you're doing. Seriously, keep it up. I think that would be amazing to see your channel grow and you get to be a spotlight for indies. That'd be awesome.
So, for anyone watching, thank you for watching, and if you haven't purchased Smushi Come Home on Steam yet, first of all, you're here, so why haven't you bought it yet? And second of all, please go buy it. He put his heart and soul into it. It's absolutely worth the price that you pay for it. It's so replayable, so fun, and just keep an eye out for Some Humble Onion's future projects. That's all I have to say. So
Thank you, man. And yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you to the audience for watching.
So that'll be it. Thank you guys. As a final note to end this video, I thoroughly enjoyed testing this project, and I'm glad my feedback potentially could have been helpful to how this game turned out. 100% of the credit goes to SomeHumbleOnion, of course. Without his perseverance, ability to take criticism, and ingenuity, this game wouldn't exist. I am so happy to see that it was successful for you, and I hope that your game design passion lasts for as long as you need it to. Thank you again, both for the opportunity to playtest and to interview you. It was an absolute privilege. Whether you're coming from Some Humble Onion's community, the YouTube algorithm, or other walks of life, I thank you for watching. I make videos to make people smile, and if I did that, please consider dropping a like and subscribing so that I know I'm doing something right. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next time.